Hello, everybody. Good evening. Trying to see if I can get more persons to join the conversation, to join the call, so that we can kickstart immediately. But thank you to everyone who has joined at this point. First of all, I'd like to apologize that the last time we tried to do this, there was a bit of everybody. Good evening. There was a bit of internet connection and we couldn't do that. But thankfully, we're going to continue the session today. So please kindly share this link with anybody you know that was on the last one that would have probably want to be here now and is not here, so that we can get as much persons to join the call. Basically, what we're going to be doing today is practical hands-on of DAX. I want to take it as basic as possible. So if you don't know anything about DAX, this particular session is going to help you. It's going to help you become better. Please just confirm that everyone can hear me clearly. You can just drop a message in the chat. So I'm just sure everybody can hear me clearly. I just want to be sure. Thank you to the 14 persons that are already on this call. I didn't even think I was going to get one person here actually. And by the way, I just want to proceed. I mean, it's going to be recorded, so anyone who joins in later can always watch the recording, because I want us to spend I don't want it to be very long. So because I know it's a technical concept and people might get tired really easily. So I want us to be able to grasp everything in the course. If you are yet to see I've already walked you through in the last video, I walked you through the theoretical aspect. So if you are yet to see that video, please go check that out, because it would help you to understand this particular one clearly. So it will help you to understand this particular one clearly. So I think I want to get straight into it, so we don't waste a lot of time, right? In the last class, we ended up trying to bring in this data. If you check the drive I shared, I think I would probably have to link it on this particular one, or it should be linked in the description. You would see the link to the data sets that we're working with for this video. I got a lot of complaints that the sales data was not in it. Please check the folder. The sales data have been uploaded in that particular folder. You would have all the resources. Even this PBIS where I am at, it's also in that particular folder, so you can just download and start from this stage. So this is what we're able to bring it into Power Query, load all the data, and basically what I'm just going to do here is I'm going to just close and apply the data that we've loaded into my Power BI. And what we have here is this particular model that we're seeing here. I want to be sure that we are all at the same place. Like, let me get some pulse check. Can we proceed? Do you want me to wait for you for just maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes for you to get settled in, or like just give me a thumbs up, give me a reaction, leave a comment. Let me just get like do some pulse check, right, to be sure that everyone is ready to kickstart the class. So if you are ready, just say I'm ready, let's go. So I want everyone to just drop a comment or leave a comment to say that they are ready and we can proceed. Or maybe somebody's trying to adjust their seats. You want to say give me a minute, or you're probably trying to load your own data, you're trying to say just 1 more minute or anything. So I want to be sure that we are all on the same page and everyone is ready to learn DAX. Like I mentioned last week, I want to make you fall. I think this is like the most technical part of Power BI that a lot of people find really, really tasking. And basically, what I want to do with this video, with this class, is to make sure that everybody understands the basics. So I'm going to be walking you through the basics. Okay, 2 minutes. I see a lot of 2 minutes. Beautiful. So I'm just going to give maybe 5 minutes or 4 minutes rather. We're going to be chatting till that 4 minutes and try to see if other persons can also join in, and then we'll kickstart the class. So if you can't see the data set, please just okay, I'm going to drop a link to the file in the I'm just going to just give me a second and I will drop a link to the drive so you can have access to the data set, and you just load that in. The PBIS is also in that drive. So you would just have that and you're ready to kickstart the session as well. By the way, how was your week? I hope you guys had a fantastic week. Mine was a little bit stressful. I had to commute every day, so it was very, very tasking for me. But I mean, anything for data. So if you open this, I'm going to share the link now so that everyone would have access to it. If you just open this drive, you would see the my slides from last week, the PDF file. Yes, my slides from last week. This folder that says Maven Toys, it contains all the data sets. So 4 different tables. There's also the dictionary there, but we're working with just sales, products, inventory, and stores. And also then you have the PBIX file, which is where I'm at now. This period, you can just download this and it takes you straight to where I'm at currently. So I'm just going to leave this particular one in the chat so everyone has access to it. Oh, I see a question here, but I'm going to tell you this, right? Basically, what we are doing in this class is we're not doing a project. I want to, before you even understand KPIs, metrics, all that, you should even understand what is that. If you don't understand DAX, you will not even know, you will probably know the KPI to pick, but you don't even know how to write the DAX for that KPI. So let me give you just a brief intro into what this class is all about, while we're still waiting for others to set up, and while we're still before we go into the practical aspect. So basically what I want to do, or my goal or my aim for this class, is to help you understand what DAX is, the basics of DAX, how to write simple DAX, and just know all those syntax. In the next couple, like I said, I'm going to make this a very short session, so we don't spend all our time. What I intend to do is, in the next couple of weeks, probably bi-weekly or every week, I don't know what it's going to be or the timeline is going to be, but I want to make sure that we're looking at all the basics of, because I know there are a lot of beginners here, and I want to make sure I look at all the basics of DAX. We go through all of that, and then you now start understanding metrics, KPI, and all of that, how to select them and how to implement all the DAX that we will learn to write those KPIs. Okay, it's been recorded. I mentioned that earlier on, so you would have the recording immediately after the session and all. I've dropped a link to the drive. So the drive contains all the data sets and the resources that we're going to be using for this particular session. Okay, 1 minute more, and I'm still waiting for others to get settled in. I just want to be sure that we are all here now. If you're ready to go, please just drop that in the comment section. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to write DAX. Excited to be here. So we can just kickstart it. And please, if at any point in time I'm moving too fast, please feel free to draw me back. This class is for you. Okay, feel free to draw me back. I also want to learn from you guys as well. So just feel free to draw me back if I'm moving too fast. If you don't like the pace I'm going at, I want us to take it slow and steady. I would assume that everyone has got their data loaded in, or if you've not, you just have to connect to those data sets you have in that particular folder, bring it into Power BI, and and get to this particular place, and then we're just ready to kickstart the session. Love the energy. Thank you, Toluwalashe. Ready, set, go. Love the emojis. Thank you, Chineye. Thank you. Thank you, Sisi. Sisi says she's excited to be here. All right. I think we are all ready to kickstart. We are on the 10th minute. So let's dive right into it. So basically, what we want to do now is to start writing our basic stats, but something our basic measures and calculated column. Already, just to give a brief recap of what I talked about last week, I was telling you that DAX is just the formula language that Power BI uses, right? And there are three use cases of DAX, or even if I do say four use cases. You have using DAX to create measures, using DAX to create calculated columns, using DAX to create calculated tables, and using DAX for row level security. Okay, and today we're going to be focused throughout the session of when we're going to be learning throughout all our DAX series, we're going to be more focused on creating measures, calculated columns, and calculated tables. Okay, so in this particular for today, I'll probably focus my class on creating measures and maybe a little bit of calculated columns, right? And in our next series, we'll focus more on calculated tables and time intelligence calculation. But for now, let's just look at the very, very basics. So we're using this Maven Toys data set, and we've been able to load it. And the data set contains 4 different tables. And these 4 tables, I really hope my screen is visible enough. These 4 tables contain like the 2 fact tables and 2 dimensional tables, right? The sales table, inventory information, product, and stores table. And I've been able to connect my data model like this. And basically, when you're connecting your data model, you're doing what? Primary key to foreign key, primary key to foreign key. So I've been able to connect this table, and this is actually very, very, very important when you are dealing with your when you want to start writing DAX. A good data model will determine how clean your DAX is going to get. So make sure that you've properly modeled your data, and then we're just going to go straight into it. Now, the first set of things we're going to try to do is to create we want to create your first measure. So I'm assuming that we're all beginners, we've never written DAX before, and you want to create your first measure in Power BI. That is what we want to do now. You want to create your first measure in Power BI. And when you're creating measures, you're probably on the reports view, right? And one of the best ways to actually go about doing this is, please just confirm that everyone can still hear me clearly. I want to be sure I'm still audible. I just want to be sure that I'm still audible. I really do hope I am. Okay, let's continue. So one of the very first thing to do when you want to start creating your DAX is to create your measures table. When you want to start creating measures, is to create your measures table. You need to have like a dedicated measures table. Okay, you need to have a dedicated measures table, and that is what we're going to start with now. Now, there are even different ways to go about creating your dedicated measures, but I want to go the simplest route, which is using the enter data tab on your home tab, the enter data command on your home tab. Okay, so what you want to do is click on enter data. And when you click on enter data, I'll tell you the reason why we're creating a measures table. When you click on enter data, you get this create table pop-up that comes up. And what you just want to do is to rename this table to, I'm going to call this my DAX measures. So I'll just say DAX measures. Okay, you can call it whatever you like, but I'm just going to call this my DAX measures. And the next thing I am going to do is to click on load. So we're just going to wait for that to load for a couple of minutes. Okay, good. So we have that loaded here. You can see the DAX measures that contain the empty column while we're trying to create that table, right? That is the first thing when you're trying to create your or that is when you're trying to write your DAX, or to write your measures, creating a dedicated measures table. Now the reason why we are creating a dedicated measures table is this: we are going to be writing a lot of calculations, and you don't want, imagine you have over 120 columns in your table. You don't want to have to start looking for the measure that you've written, because measures are something that you'll be using in your visuals a lot. So you want to have a dedicated measures that whenever you come, you just go to that table and pick what you need. And that is why we are creating a measures table. So I assume that everyone has created their own measures table, or they already know and understand how to create their own measures table. Now let's look at how you can create your first measures. So something I want to do is our first measures. We're going to create our first measures now. And for our first measures, we'll be starting with a category. I talked about functions last week, that Power BI has a lot of functions that you can use. I think I even linked, I mentioned that I linked the DAX function reference in my slide. So you might want to download that slide, and it will take you to the DAX to Microsoft Learn website, where you're going to see the list of all the DAX that is available in your Power BI. So we're going to start with first and one of the most popular functions here, which is the sum function. And we're going to use the sum function to create our first measure. So what we're going to do is this: to create your first measure, there are several ways to go about it. Over here on your home tab, you can see new measure. That is one way. Another thing to do is to, when you want to create your measures and you want to make sure your measure stays in the table you are creating it on, click on your table first, which is this measures table. Now when I click on this table, you can see I have new measure here to create. I can either click on this, or I come to my table, right click on that particular table, and then I'm going to see new measure, and I can just select new measure. Okay, so once you select new measure, a pop-up is going to come out to say measure equals to. Now what you are seeing right now is what we call the formula bar. And unlike your Excel, where you don't need to give your calculation or your formula a title, in Power BI you have to give every measure and every calculation you write a title. So in this case, because I want to calculate the sum of my total revenue, or the sum of my total price, what I'm going to do is this: I'm going to call this measure, or I'm going to call my measure, let me call it revenue. So I'm just going to say revenue equals to, then we're using our sum function. So we want to say, what is total revenue? Total revenue is what? The sum of your revenue, right? The total of all your revenue. So it's saying revenue for this day plus this day plus this day, sum of them together, or revenue for this customer plus this customer plus this customer. Pardon me for saying it like this, but I want to make sure it's basic and very understandable. So when you want to use this, you use your sum function. So I'm just going to call sum. And there's something I like about Power BI. It has intelligence capability. When you start writing a measure, it tells you, like, you start bringing out what you're writing to say, okay, I think this is what you're writing. And because this is what we're writing, this sum, I'm just going to select it. Now the next thing that it does is, can everybody still see my screen? I want to be sure that because somebody's asking if I'm still streaming. So if you cannot see my screen, please just log out and log back in. So the next thing that you see here is the definition of what the sum function does. So it tries to tell you that is the sum function adds all the numbers in a column. Okay, so what the sum function does is it adds up all the numbers in a column. So it takes what? And it takes what? A column name. If I don't write these brackets, you can see my column name is not blue, it's not activated. But by the time I put in a bracket, it's telling me that the next thing I need to put here is a column name. And the column name that I want to sum is my product price, or this revenue that I have in my sales total revenue. It's my sales total revenue column. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to close my bracket, and I'll click on enter. Now, once you click on enter, you can see that what you calculated is already here. Please, if you cannot hear me, just let me know at any point in time. And if you can still hear me, please just help me drop a thumbs up emoji or anything so that we're all on the same page. So you can see here that we have like the revenue, right, that we've just calculated. Now, one thing you should know about your measures: when you write measures, you don't see them on your data model. What this means is that if I go to my table view over here, I cannot see. You can see this is my DAX measures table. I can only see that column 1. I can't see my revenue. And what you can see over here is what is signifying that this is a measure, this column here. Now look at other things. You can't see this icon, right? This icon that looks like a calculator, it's not on this place. But because of this icon that looks like a calculator is what tells you that this particular data was not here. It was calculated here in Power BI and it's a measure. So what we're going to do is to another thing we're going to do is, because we want to make sure that Power BI recognizes this table as our measures table, what I'm going to do is to hide this column 1 or delete it because I don't need it. So what I'm going to do is I can just come here and click on this I button, or right click and click on the 3 dots here, and I'm just going to do hide. And if I do this hide, what happens is that my measures now take the form of a calculator. You can see the icon you are seeing here is different from these other tables. This is what makes you know that this is a calculated table. Are we following? I need to get some reaction. I think a couple of persons are having issues. I want to be sure that it's not from my end and everyone is following. Please, if you are following, let me know. I want to be sure that we are all following and everyone is nobody's getting caught out. So the next thing we're going to do is to use another function. Now, what this function we've just used now, the sum function, is what we call an aggregation function. Okay, it's called an aggregation function. The next thing we're going to look at another example of an aggregation function here. Let's look at the average function. Okay, we're going to look at the average function. Let me mention that for the throughout this session, I'm going to be highlighting the most important. I mean, there are several DAX functions, but I'm going to be highlighting the most important functions that you're going to be using. Please, if you have a question, just drop that in the chat. I have a second screen I'm looking at, so I'll be able to answer your question even while the session is going on, so we don't need to wait till the end of the session before we ask our questions. So let's look at another example. We're going to look at the average function. Also, if you don't understand whatever thing I mentioned at any point in time, let me know so I will just take it again, go over it one more time. So let's go ahead and look at another example of a function. So I'm going to go ahead and do what? I'll click on my measures, another example. So we want to do new measure. Okay, and for this particular one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the average. We're going to be looking at, we want to find our average product price. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this average product price. Remember, you have to always give your calculations a name. So average product price equals to, I'm going to call the average function. And just like I mentioned, when you start writing something, Power BI tries to complete it for you. So you can just click on this, right? Because this is what we want to this thing. And what does average takes? It also takes a column name. And this time around, we want to look at the average product price. So I'm going to select average product price and I'm going to close that bracket. And I will click on what? Enter. Also, same thing, because it's a measure, you'll probably not see that on your on your data view. You can only see it when you bring it to a visual. Now, the next example we're going to look at, another aggregation function, we're going to look at our count and how to use count, how to count things using DAX, right? So I'll go ahead again and I'm going to do new measure. Maybe we should use this one this time around so you know both of them works. So I'm going to click on new measure and I'm going to do, I'll call this count of products, count of So count of products equals to, so what I'm doing is count. I'm using my count function. So count is a function that allows you to count things in Power BI. So it's a DAX function. So I'll count the number of, I want to count the number of products. So because I'll use my ID, right? Oh, okay. So the revenue column in the sales table was calculated using Power Query. If you look at the PBIX file I uploaded, I'm sure that one has a revenue column already. So I just assume that everyone. So it was calculated in Power Query, and I can show you how to do that probably later on. How I got the revenue column. So what I just did was to import the product price from the products table into the sales column, and just do the multiplication. That is how we're able to get that particular column. So product ID. Then the next thing we want to do is click on OK, enter. And this is how we've been able to count product. Now let me mention that count is different from distinct count. And when you're saying distinct count, you want to get like a distinct count of all the product ID that you have. For example, if I come here and I do the count of product ID, I would not get the same thing as what is here. So if I want to get the same thing as what is in my products table, I'm going to use the distinct count function. And we can try to, that is also another aggregation function. So if I click on new measure, I can also come here and say, let's call this distinct count. Distinct count of products. And I'll say this is equals to my distinct count. So once you start writing, so we've been able to look at 4 different options, right? We've been able to look at the revenue. We've also been able to look at the average product, and we've also been able to look at like the count, and also been able to look at distinct count as well. Let me know if you can still hear me. I hope I'm still audible and everyone can hear me. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is I'm going to show you, and let's even try to visualize some of these visuals that we've created, and you can see before we continue looking at some of this aggregation function. So for our revenue, right, if I bring in my card visual now and I put this here, I would be able to see the revenue that I've created. Okay, I will be able to see the revenue that I have created. Also, if you want to see the count of products, if I bring this here as well, I will be able to see this. But from the back end, you would actually not be able to see that. Now we can try to write more DAX. For example, maybe we want to see like the average. We've been able to see like average product price, right? But using just like the average function. Another format would be when you're doing your average product price, you are saying product price divided by product count, right? That is what you're trying to say. So if I come here and I also do another sum of my product price, for example, I'm going somewhere, guys. So if I come here and I say we want to do, I'm just trying to show you a little bit of how DAX can make the work easier for you. So if I come here and I'm doing, because what I did was average of my okay, we've gotten average of product price. So what I did before was sum of revenue. Let's do sum of product price. So if I do sum, so I have to give it a name. Never forget, you always have to give it a name. You have to give your table a name. I want to be sure that everyone is still with me. I hope we're together. So I'm going to give this a name. My table is going to be sum of product. Let me just call this sum of product price for now. So sum of product price. equals to, so this is going to be sum of the product price that I have in my product table. So sum of product price in my product table. Let me know if you are following. If you are following, just let me know that you are following, so that if you're lost, I can always come back there. So that's sum of product price. Right now, if you want to calculate average is just saying sum of your price divided by the count of your products. That is what average is. So if I do a new measure now here is where measure gets interesting, or writing measures or writing DAX gets interesting. Normally, in measures, there are two kinds of measures. I mentioned this last week. You have implicit measures and explicit measures. Now, the reason why, because somebody will tell me that, why do I need to write DAX? Can't I just go ahead and drag and drop and have Power BI will do the calculation for me? Power BI will do the calculation for you, good. But when you start writing large, or you want to do extensive analysis, you realize that you can't do that because you don't have the basic DAX to actually create those extensive analysis. That makes your report looks very rich, very, very rich. So that is why you're writing DAX. So what you want to do now, right? I can call for my implicit DAX, I can't call them in other DAX or in calculations, but for my explicit DAX, which is what we're writing by ourselves, I can call them in other calculation. So if I come here now and I do, let me say, average product price, this will be equals to, and it's just, I'm saying that the sum of my price, right, divided by the count of my product. So I can call this sum of price I've calculated here, and I'll just do slash, and can come here and do slash of the count of products that I've already calculated. Am I too fast? Let me know if I'm too fast as well. And if I click on enter, I can drag that and put it on a visual. And if I bring this average one I calculated with the average function, it's going to give me the same result, right? We have the same result. But now, what in as much as you can calculate or do your divide like this, there's even a better way to even do the divide, the division, and we're going to use the divide function to do that. Now, instead of writing this, what you are going to do is this. So I'm going to do new measure again, and I will say average product price equals to, I will call my divide function. Now, what does the divide function do? Look at it. It says it's safe divide function with ability to handle divide by 0 cases. Because if you use the other round, it will not even suffice for when you are dividing by 0. Because sometimes you're trying to divide 2 columns or 2 things and there are zeros in the other side. It will not be able to suffice for that. So now, what does the divide function take? It takes a numerator and a denominator. If you're familiar with primary school maths, you will know what numerators and denominators are. So the numerator is what we are going to write first, which is what? The sum of our product price. And then what's the next thing I'm going to put? Look at it, just follows this blue icon. You can see it's still a numerator. So it's assuming that I'm still writing my numerator. But by the time I type comma, it goes to my denominator. So I have to write my denominator. That's how interesting DAX is. So when you're writing DAX, it makes it very, because of its intelligence capability, you will be able to even understand what you need to do next. So you know now that what you need to write is the denominator. And what's my denominator? It's actually the count of my product. So the count of my product, which is this, right? Now the last one in bracket is optional. So now this is what's probably alternate results. Maybe if it does not divide properly, or if it's 0, return this or something. That is what you are doing. So what I'm just going to do is close the brackets. Now if I bring this one and I put it also on a card visual, you will notice that it is still the same thing. But you've been you have used 3 different methods to actually do our average. So that is just something that you should put at the back of your mind. You might ask, is it only maybe numbers that we can use this aggregation function for? No. For example, I can also do like a distinct, if I want to see the number of sales days, like the total sales days or total days that I've sold something for, right? I can do a count of my dates or a distinct count of my dates. So how am I going to do that? I'll do a new measure again. Okay, so I'm going to do new measure. On my new measure, I can call this sales days. So sales days count. Let's just call the sales days count, and I'm going to say distinct sales dates. So we're trying to see the distinct number of sales dates that will have. And if I bring this particular, and I'm just going to click on enter, and if I bring this particular measure to a visual as well, you would see that it's going to give you okay, I think I was supposed to put the count. Oops, sorry. Distinct count. Right. Okay, good. So it's going to give you the number of sales dates that you have on that day. So we've sold something for 638 days. You can probably, maybe you want to even see like the first sales dates that you have, like when did you even start selling. You can use another aggregation function, or that is when, so we want to look at another example of an aggregation function. We are going to look at using min and max. So everything we've been looking at, we've looked at sum, we've looked at count, we've looked at average, we've looked at distinct count, and now we want to look at min and max. So to do the minimum of a sales date, so what you need to do is click on new measure. Okay, and when you click on new measure, what you want to do is to say, so I want to find the minimum of my sales start date. So I'm going to say sales start date equals to, mind you, what we are doing, we are not trying to create a report or anything. We are just learning the basics of DAX. So we are not even looking at KPIs, metrics, or whatnot. I'm trying to teach you when to use some function and how to use it and what function you use for what. So I'm going to say minimum. So the sales start date will be the minimum sales date I have. So minimum, and I will call, what does it take? It takes a column name or a scalar object. So this is what it takes, the minimum of my sales date, and I'm going to click on enter. So if I also bring this particular measure to a card visual, it's going to show me the first date that I made a sales. And if I probably go to my data model or my table view to check on my dates, so let's go to sales and probably sort this in. It's already sorted. You can see it's January 1st, 2022. That is the first sales date that we have. So it shows you that the DAX is working. We can do the same thing by getting the max of this. So if I do new measure, I can come here and call this sales end date, which is equals to what? The maximum of my sales end date. Please, I would like to get of my sales date, I would like to get feedback or pause. I mean, it's supposed to be a beginner class, but it looks like we're saying a lot of technical concepts. So if you're having challenge understanding what we are doing, please let me know. But if it's simple and easy for you to follow through, also tell me that you're following through so that then we can continue. Okay. So we've been able to look at you can also do the same thing for product price. I'll let you do that as a classwork or as an assignment, so you can write your own DAX to find the minimum product price and also probably the maximum product price as well. Now the next thing we've been able to look at aggregate functions, so aggregation functions. I'm going to move to another set of functions, and I'm going to call this one what we call this one is the filter function. Okay, so we're going to talk about the filter function right about now. If you understand aggregation function to an extent, please just give me a thumbs up, give me a reaction, or drop a message in the comments so I know that we understand this. So let's go ahead and move to our aggregation function. Okay, So for our aggregation, okay, maybe I should come to our, sorry, filter function. Maybe I should rename this my DAX measures and call this one aggregation function. So we'll start the process again from beginning. So I'm just going to call this my own DAX aggregation functions. Okay, and then I'm going to create a new table again. So let's do a new table and we try to do the process from scratch again. So what I want to do here is enter data. Remember, that is what we did to create our measures table, right? So in case you forgot, we're doing that again. Enter data, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this filter functions. And I'm going to click on load. Now, filter functions are those functions that you use to actually filter your data, just like the name implies, right? So we've created our filter, the table we're going to be using to store all of our filter functions. Now, there's something, we're going to be doing something really interesting now. So you know why some of these functions are even very, very important. I'm just going to create a new page here that I'll be using to do some practicals and whatnot, okay? So the first filter function, we're going to look at a couple of filter functions, and the first one, which is like even the most popular DAX function and the most important DAX function, or function that you should know, like there's no way you can avoid using this particular function, and that is the calculate function. What calculate function helps you do is it helps you override any filter context, and I'm going to explain that. Let's do something interesting here. I'm going to go to my filter function table now. That is why I'm going to be creating all these filter functions. And I'm going to do what? I would create a new measure, and I'll just call this, let me call this my revenue filter. Let me just do that. Revenue filter. And I would say this is equals to calculate, and I'm doing calculate my the sum of my revenue, or calculate revenue. Let me just say calculate, since I already have revenue calculated before. So calculate revenue. Now if I bring this here on a visual, let me put this as a card. This is my revenue filter with the calculate. And I also bring the revenue I calculated on here. It gives me the same result, right? Now, but here's the thing. I can't modify this revenue. This one I wrote here, I can't modify it. But this one, I can modify this particular one. Let's say, for example, I want to modify this filter. I just want to see, okay, let me do something here. We're going to do let's bring in a bar chart. I'm going to bring in this bar chart here, and I'm just going to put in that revenue filter. I'm going to put in this revenue filter, and I'm also going to put in my Please just let me know if you can hear me. You can just refresh your session, refresh your internet if you cannot this thing. Is the screen still rolling on your own end? I don't know. I get a couple of messages like it's the screen is rolling on their end. So I think it should be off. It should be fine. And I wanted this to last for 1 hour, but unfortunately, we're already close to the 1 hour mark. And just like I mentioned earlier on, in case you missed that, I want this to be a series, right? Where we keep taking this over and over and over again because um, I don't want to bombard everybody. But let me know if everyone can hear me clearly. I see a couple of this, and I just want to be sure that we can all hear me. So, like I was saying, we're already on the 1 hour mark, and I don't want to bombard everybody. We've been able to look through aggregation functions, and I would assume that everyone understands aggregation functions. And because I want this to be a series where we keep talking about DAX over people can at people's attention span. The most important thing is to practice. Okay, it's very important you practice. The recorded session will be available once this session ends. There's a replay version on here, so I want you to play it, just replay it, and replay the session and practice. I'm going to share a couple of practice questions, so please just try to practice. Please, if the screen is rolling, what I just need you to is log out or refresh your this thing, and you'll probably see the it's going to be back. All right, guys, I don't see any questions. So if you have any question, please drop them in the group. Like I mentioned, the recording will be available, and then we'll meet again to continue this series of DAX. Thank you everyone for joining, and I'm going to see you guys next week. Bye everyone.